Welcome to Big Blend Radio, where we celebrate variety and how it adds spice to quality of life.
This is a story that hasn't really been told.
Where do I begin? I've been photographing Asian Americans in New York City for 50 years.
All these events, and who do you see? You see Corky Lee taking pictures. You believe what you see. In junior high school, they showed the photograph of the completion of the railroad. I didn't see any Chinese. The audacity, they didn't want the Chinese to be photographed as part of the celebration.
What was called history was not everyone's history.
That sort of set my course. I figured my contribution was for me to use photography as an organizing tool for social change.
He did it because it needed to be done.
I'm practicing photographic justice. At the height of this protest against police brutality, one of them swung a billy club. The New York Times, they said they didn't know of any violence. The New York Post said they had their photographer there. I said, well, my photograph showed somebody got beaten up. Okay, kid, bring it in. And I made the front page.
It's really making art and politics come together in a way that very few other photographers have been able to do.
I don't think people need to remember who I am. It's more important that they remember the images. 2001. September 11th happened, and that shifted my focus.
There are Asians in the same uniforms as much as white Americans.
That famous photograph was taken in 1869, and I decided that I should do something about it. The omission of Chinese 145 years ago resolved through an act of photographic justice.
If you're a photographer, keep shooting.
Hey, everybody, welcome to Big Blend Radio. Today, we are talking about a documentary that is a must-watch. It's very relevant through the years in history, and it is relevant today for sure. It is called Photographic Justice, the Corky Lee Story. And we have filmmaker Jennifer Takaki joining us. I encourage you to go to the website, photographicjustice.com. So welcome, Jennifer. How are you?
I am well. Thank you very much, Lisa. Thanks for having me.
I'm excited to have you here. Nancy and I just watched this last night and we're like, wow, I want to rewatch it because Corky Lee was an incredible photographer, but he seemed so dedicated and a man of integrity, wouldn't you say?
Oh, for sure, for sure. I think that because he wasn't just a photographer, he really loved people, history, and culture, which is why he and I connected so much. And I think that he's so genuine in his caring for people and the history, not just American history, but like the history of his beloved community, which was Chinatown and beyond, all the communities of AAPIs.
Yeah, he did. And it was so many different cultures connected, which I thought was also really interesting to learn about. And it's so sad that he passed from COVID, of all things. It's that's sad.
He really kind of sad. Sacrificed his life for his passion, right? Like, because he was covering people that were getting, it was during that whole rise of anti-Asian hate in the subway systems. And so he was down there covering and documenting what was going on. So it is a very tragic tale of how Corky died. But I do know that, like, for Corky, it was never about him. It was about his photos, and his photos will live well beyond him, and people will be able to, very much see his photos and use them for their purposes to help get the word out about AAPI's contributions.
And for you, where did this story, how did you get connected with it and get the whole project started? Because I know it's a lot of work that goes into it, especially when someone's passed. It's really hard to, I'm glad you did it, to carry his torch, but tell us a little bit about actually getting it all together and how you found out about him.
Yeah, so I actually did not know about Corky. I'm a journalist. I was in journalism prior to this, and journalism and entertainment, and I just wanted to do 5-minute vignettes on people who had a singular vision, which was really interesting to me because I felt like it would be very specific people and very few. And I happened to run across Corky just because I was at an event, and the event ended. It was an Asian American Journalists Association event, and a friend of mine was speaking, and I just asked the person closest to me where the bathroom was. It happened to be Corky. And he said, I don't know where the women's room is, but I know where the men's room is. And I said, well, if you tell me where the men's room is, I'll find the women's. And he's like, well, actually, the history of the building was it used to be an all boys school. And so it could be on a different, and I'm like, just tell me where the men's room is.
I gotta go. I gotta go.
So he was like, I'll walk you there. And I was like, who are you? And he's like, I'm Corky Lee. And then he started talking to me about all of these things that he does and all the all the things that he takes photos of. I couldn't figure him out. I mean, I loved that he knew so much history, but I couldn't figure out like why he did what he did. And so he was my first 5-minute vignette that turned into filming.
Wow. And so putting it all together, getting all of his story, you went to a lot of different people for that, and it's going to be on PBS. Tell everybody, that's exciting.
Yes.
Woo, film festivals, and then PBS to me is epic.
Yes, it is epic, and it is a place that Corky's story deserves to be, should be. He would love it to be. He wanted it to be. You know what I mean? Like, there's so many wonderful aspects about that. We're very excited that it's going to be on PBS because we do really want the nation to know about Corky and his contributions with his photography. I think that there's such an important story there. He's all about just photographic justice, which was just having the stories of those people who have been omitted from the mainstream media and American history books. So yeah, Corky's photos are really going to help tell that story, and to be able to do that nationwide can't be a better place.
Yeah, I love that. So everyone, I want them to know it's starting on May 13th. It's premiering 10 and 9 Central on PBS. So check your local listings. But you can also go to photographicjustice.com. They're also on social media as well. But, as a filmmaker, as a journalist, what changed for you? I know that when you do projects like this, you learn something touches you, you grow as an artist, right? And as a storyteller. What changed for you going through this process?
I think Corky changed everything for me in the sense of like just opening up to like that somebody like Corky would allow someone just so randomly to kind of follow him around and see his world. And then his world became my world because I was covering it, and I've met so many incredible people along the way. And a lot of those people are interviewed in the film, but I think just meeting Corky and seeing him in his element and seeing him interact with the people that are so beloved to him and that he means so much to as well. It really is an incredible community, and I feel like I would not have known about the community as much, or maybe even I would not have known about AAPI history as much if I had not been following Corky and the importance of that story. So for sure, it was eye-opening. It took me a while to do it, but I had so many people who helped, and like my editor, Linda Hattendorf, really understood the story. And outside of Corky, I would say she's the second most important person because she had the heart of an activist, and she understood what Corky and I wanted, what I wanted to do with Corky, and she understood Corky's trajectory. So really, it was a passion project that involved so many people. I mean, we have so many great people. All of our our executive producers, our producers. We have like people who have just supported us that have come up from corporations or monetarily, or provided venues. I mean, I can't, like, people who helped shoot on. There are people on the crew who helped shoot because I couldn't make it to during some of those events during the COVID, and I was in a different city. So anyway, so all around, like, the story is about a community of people who made the film, and about a community of people that Corky represents.
And I'm hoping that it brings some peace and some justice, literally. I think that's what he would want.
For sure. I think it would have been a tragedy if we didn't have the documentation of Corky, because he was so ubiquitous. And I think to not be able to tell his story without his voice, because his voice is so New York, right? Like, his voice is so Queen, so New York, so Corky. And to hear the way he talks about things, and I think it because of who he is and how passionate he is, because the viewer cares about Corky, they care about what Corky represents. And because he's so charming, I think it's so charming and genuine and so steadfastly focused. I think that makes a compelling story. And I think there are very few people like Corky around. And so for him to be able to leave that legacy for the next generations is a really important message.
Also, the fact that he did it for over 50 years, I hope, we're in the world of AI, and I think that's also the important thing, that it shows the art form of photography, that a picture does tell 1,000 words, 10,000, 20,000 words. And we're such a headline visual society, that I think it's important with what he's done, and just to inspire others to do it, is to take those photos and show what's happening. Because if you don't have documentation, it's hard to prove anything, and it's honoring the community, like you said, too.
For sure. He was the guy who knew what he was doing way before any of us caught up to it. He would, when we would go to a place, and you know how you always kind of would see vintage photos on the walls? Corky inherently knew that that's what he wanted to do. He knew the importance, like, you don't know the name of the person who had that, taken that building, of whatever the building is, and you don't know, like, anything about it, but the photo, and that photo means so much, right? To be able to look back and think about that time period, to know that that time period existed, was very much what Corky's thought process was. He knew that those photos were going to be able to capture a time and place that he got to witness. And it was really important. He also did not do what do you call it, a Photoshop, or he did not alter his photos.
Right.
He would go in the dark room and he may fudge the lighting, make some parts darker or lighter or whatever.
Sure.
He didn't, so he was a very old school in a way, in a good way, that I think that, no one's going to question, like, was that really there, or did that person,
realism?
Yeah. So he was a really kind of interesting character in the time period that he lived, because he was very true to his craft. Not that I'm not judging, people who do
what people do. Everyone's got their thing.
For what he wanted to do, the journalistic side of him, he wanted to keep things, very straight and forward, and use his camera and his lens to take that photo.
Do you ever think he took a day off? I don't think he's that kind of human being. I think he was always out, or, maybe catching some sleep, right? But it was like he was always out and about, because there's always going to be something, right, to photograph.
Yeah. He did have a private life, and I think that he did do his quirky private life, but I don't think that I think it was always inherent to just rest and just kind of just catch up to things. But he was always ready to go. He never had an off day. I mean, honestly, of all the times I've filmed him, I could just be there. I would just randomly catch up to him to say, we're going to have lunch or something. But then I would end up filming him, and he never needed advance notice, right? I mean, how great is, this guy is the true deal, right? We would just start shooting whenever. And it's not like I just needed to give him a heads up and say, okay, Corky, I'm going to be there, so he could figure out what he was going to wear. Nothing like that. He was just Corky through and through. He just showed up, just shoot.
Cool. That's awesome. That's awesome. And when you talked to him that you wanted to do this, did he feel shy about it at the beginning, or was he okay?
No. Have you seen that guy on camera? He was not shy. Like I said, this guy was incredible. I mean, he was an incredible subject, really.
He's got a good energy.
Yeah, and he loved being photographed and talked to, and it didn't matter if it was just you talking to him, or if you with a camera, or if you were a student, or if you were with a major company. It didn't matter to Corky. You were just a person to him, and it was just a way for him to relay his message, right? So he never really kind of cared one way or the other. He just liked to talk, and he liked to share about the history in his photos.
Awesome. Well, Jennifer, thank you so much for joining us. And listen, this has got to go everywhere. It's got to go.
Thank you, Lisa.
Thank you so much for the work you do.
I
love it. Everyone, photographicjustice.com is the website. Again, it hits PBS May 13th. And so check that out. Thanks so much, Jennifer. You take care.
Okay. Thank you. Bye.
Bye. Thank you for listening to Big Blend Radio. Keep up with our shows at bigblendradio.com.